All right, I'm Zach Lyons here, part of 104.5 The Zone. This is, of course, going on football and other F words, but it'll also be wherever you get your Zone TV podcasts and everything. So I'm here with Mike Borgonzi, General Manager of the Tennessee Titans. Congratulations.
Thank you, Zach.
Sorry that I'm in flip-flops and everything, but I lost a chunk of my toe recently, so I don't want you to think I always dress this casually, but can't fit in tennis shoes right now. So when you were hired, it was kind of immediately thrown out there by Albert Breer that you would likely be bringing Dave Ziegler on board as assistant general manager.
Yep.
So how did y'all's working relationship come about, and what it kind of detail his responsibilities?
So I've known Dave really since I got in the league 16 years ago. We met on the road scouting. So that's really when I developed a relationship with him. And right away I knew he was a smart guy. So over the years, similar to Chad, who I met 16 years ago on the road, you have those relationships with guys in the league who you're close with. And Chad and Dave were really close with, and we would always call each other throughout the season, whether we were, working on deals or trades or cut down day and talking players over the years. So I knew, for a long time that we wanted to work together at some point. So that's really how that relationship really started.
And so what's his responsibilities going to be? Is he kind of overseeing everything? Because I know everybody throws out the term operations, but what does operations mean? If you're trying to explain it to a fan, what does that mean?
Yeah, so he's going to be a sounding board and help me out in a lot of different areas. Starting with the personnel department, the college, the pro. He's going to help me, align the staff and different departments in the building. He's been in that chair before, so guys like Reggie too. So I think they're smart people. First of all, they're very good people too. You want to work with good people that are smart and detailed. So yeah, he's going to be a big help for me, a big sounding board, just in terms of managing every department.
Fans and media always like to start out with the negative stuff. So what would you say to those fans and media, the people that say, well, you just got two guys from the Raiders and they don't have winning records? What would you say to them?
Every situation's different where you're at. I've known them for a long time. I know, and you can go around and ask anybody in the league. They're very well-respected personnel guys who are very smart, very thorough in their evaluations. And I've had the benefit of knowing them for so long, so I know that.
Yeah. So when it comes, I know that you said, smart, fast, and tough in your opening press conference, but what are your non-negotiables when it comes to prospects to go beyond just fast and tough? Those traits that a prospect has to have for you to even consider them on your draft board.
Yeah, the physical traits we're looking for. You have to stand out at this level, obviously, from the college level to here. It's the physical, it's being fast, quick-twitched. And there's going to be a size profile that we have at certain positions. So those will be, pretty much non-negotiables. But then really it's like the character piece. Are they good citizens? Are they good people in the community? Are they good teammates? Do they actually love football? And not all the stuff that comes with it. So sometimes you get that. So that's part of the process here is we're really trying to dig down during these interviews of the character piece. These guys love showing up to football every day because it's a grind, especially when you get to the NFL now. It's a longer season for these guys, so it's the meetings, it's the film watching, it's are they good teammates? Are they selfless? That's the stuff we're looking for.
So how do you go about? Obviously you can find some of that stuff out in the interview process, but really, anybody can kind of have a good interview, right? And not really live up to the expectations. So what's that other step further that you guys have to take to ensure that what you're seeing in the interview process is actually that guy?
So just to rewind a little bit, this process starts, years before with our area scouts. So that's a big part of, when they go into the school and they're talking with, different coaches, people in the building, that's where you really start to build the profile, the character profile. And then if there's questions that need to be answered throughout this process, that's what we're going to do. And this is really the start of it at these all-star games. And then we'll have the combine, and then we'll have pro days, and then we have the opportunity to bring them in the building on a 30-day visit if we want to do that. And then we have the opportunity to do Zooms now, which we use a lot in Kansas City.
How do you cut through the bull crap of does no coach or head coach in college football is really going to want to talk bad about their players? So how do you build those relationships and cut through the bull crap to figure out more about the players' love for football?
So we always say it's a relationship business. Yeah. So that's a big requirement for our area scouts when they get in the building is to form those relationships and to have And then sometimes if it's a guy who's new to the school, and maybe I've been through the school, or I know the coach very well, so you work together to try to figure out that piece. And and if the scout says, maybe we need to dig a little bit more, do you know this head coach? And we start to make phone calls on that. So we work every angle on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you talked a lot about leadership, specifically in your quarterbacks, but leadership in general for the players that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I always find it curious because I'm kind of a student of leadership and stuff, and I've been in a couple of different, title-holding positions. Yeah. But how do you define leadership? Because a lot of people think, well, the loudest person in the room or the most rah-rah, high-energy guy has to be the leader. So how do you define leadership, and how do you actually measure it?
So leadership is influencing people. How do you influence people? And that comes down to, having to build, whether it's a player, building a relationship with the players, your teammates, and then building trust with them. And then, do the players follow them? Do they look up to them? So those are the things we're really trying to drill down on, how do these guys influence their teammates? And that's when you talk about building a foundation of core players, draft and develop. Once you start stacking those guys, then it becomes a standard when you walk in the building, whether it's a draft pick or it's a free agent. There's a standard in the building of how we do things.
Okay, so, how do you plan to marry the analytics side with the scouting side? Because I know Chad Brinker obviously has experience in the analytics department and scouting and doing that both.
Yeah.
How much do you guys rely on the analytics along with the film?
And you have to mesh those together. We're collecting data, whether it's the evaluation of film, it's the character, maybe it's an analytical model that we're doing. So the more information we have, the better. We're always going to be a tape-driven team, right? So I think we're using analytics really to augment some of our decision-makings and not necessarily drive it.
Right.
But obviously it's a big help.
So you and Brian Callahan and Brinker have all talked about accuracy. Mm-hmm. And obviously, me and Stoney behind the camera are big football nerds. So we know that accuracy is a little bit more than just completion percentage.
Right.
So there's an element of timing and placement that goes along into it. Outside of film, is there a way that you guys incorporate data to help you measure that kind of like quote unquote on-target throw?
Yeah, that's where you really have to drill down on is the receiver run the wrong route and all that stuff. But that's why you have to watch a lot of tape on these guys, a lot of film. Yeah.
So I don't know how much you know about the history of the Tennessee Titans, but this Titans team has, over the last few years, kind of struggled with this having competent left tackle and right tackle play at the same time, like even league average standards. And obviously, everyone across the league preaches the importance of building throughout the trenches, right? Everybody says we got to build through the trenches first. But how do you plan to actually do that, and what are you looking for while we're at the Senior Bowl from these offensive linemen?
Yeah. So the first thing with all linemen, you're looking at their feet. Can they move? How athletic they are? How do they cover up some of the deficiencies? And that's being like smart, tough, dependable. Sometimes strength overcomes some of those issues.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the players just having the awareness of where their weaknesses are, and then being able to compensate for them. So the biggest thing for offensive linemen is consistency. You have a couple of good reps. Can you do it throughout a game? So there's a mental toughness element to when you're watching these linemen.
Okay, so at your Kansas City days, you got Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Xavier Worthy, then also you guys signed Hollywood Brown. Yeah. All kind of seem to have a type at wide receiver. Yeah. How much of that was like a quarterback preference versus a need versus the prototype and profile that you guys built?
Well, speed, you need speed on the perimeter.
Yeah.
And speed opens up everything. It opens up, underneath patents for tight ends. So, we want to be a fast team, especially on the perimeter. So we made an emphasis in Kansas City to make sure we had fast players on the field to really stress the defenses. And that opens up a lot of things, underneath throws, the run game, so we want to be a fast team on the perimeter.
Gotcha. And so here at Tennessee, you obviously have Calvin Ridley on the side.
Yep.
He's got speed. So you're kind of looking for probably another speed guy throughout this process, you think, free agency?
They come in all different shapes and sizes, but we're going to look for speed on this team. And then smart players that know how to separate in zone coverage, too.
So would you say that, obviously speed's important, but that separation is really key, especially when you're in the red zone. You need to have guys that get open in a phone booth.
Yeah, no, it's very important. And contested catches, especially in the red zone, too. So you can't just have a bunch of small guys out there running 4-2. So you need some bigger receivers in there to make the contested catches. So that's going to be important, too, as we build it.
So you were talking about building out your size profiles and your prospect profile. So after you build out your prototype profile for players, you then probably have to consider some players may be exceptions. So like, what does a player have to show you to consider him as an exception to the rule and worth putting on the team?
That's right. You don't want to have a team of exceptions. We had a standard, for a long time that we had in Kansas City because we were a press man team. So it's 5'11" corners. And we weren't going to pass up on Trent McDuffie because he was 5'10" and a half.
Right.
So you're looking at those other qualities in coverage and short area quickness and toughness and smarts. How do they overcompensate for maybe some of their size deficiencies?
Gotcha. So your free agency spending comments seem to be a little misconstrued that you guys are going to be cheap. But there is a difference between being cheap and being thrifty. Would you consider what the Commanders did in free agency this past offseason more of what fans can expect? Kind of spending on veterans in key roles that provide leadership and talent?
I think there'll be a discipline to that. Like I said, it's not like we're not going to get free agency.
Right.
But yeah, I think Washington did a good job, and they brought in some veteran culture guys to that group. So I think that's pretty similar to what we're going to look forward to.
So I got two last questions for you. So I've been reading Ron Wolf's book, The Packer Way. So first off, do you have that book?
I do. I read it a long time ago.
Yeah, I had to buy it used, by the way, because it is not on audiobooks and it is not, not anywhere on digital. But what really stuck out was that man had conviction with a capital C in regards to Brett Favre, and he was going to be that dude since he was on the Jets scouting staff. Like, he knew that Brett Favre was that guy. Describe that feeling of conviction to fans, but also why it's so important to the draft process.
You have to have conviction and confidence in your evaluations, and we want all scouts to do that. Over the years, we've had convictions on players, and there was probably a lot of naysayers about Pat. Why would you take that guy so high? He's a lot of interceptions, footwork, but we were convicted on that player. So I think that's important as you go through the evaluation of, being convicted on the player, but also realizing at some points where you might have been too high or too low on a guy, and I think that's an important quality too.
So, obviously the number one pick, and building off that kind of conviction, fans and media tend to think that the Titans have to draft a quarterback at the top of the draft. But drafting a player because you have to seems, in the NFL, like a recipe for disaster.
Right.
What's your philosophy on best player available versus need? And how do you define reaching for a player, and when is the right time to reach?
So you're always trying to marry up your draft board with needs. That comes into play. But we're always going to draft the best available player on the board. So as we go through the process and build the board, that's when you really start working through those pockets of, where can we get this player? If we really like him, do we take him a little bit earlier than maybe we should? But just having that idea and conviction of, this is the value of the player. We're not going to pass up a good player.
Right. So when you're building your big board and you got this scouting staff, now obviously, this particular scouting staff, a little bit measured, or I guess learned their processes and everything with the Patriots under John Robinson, that kind of carried over throughout the way. There's obviously some overlap between the Patriots and the Packers and all that stuff. Yeah. So how difficult is that for them to be transitioning when you're also trying to build the big board and establish your own way and your own identity?
So I've been through it, because when I came to New England, I came in with Scott Pioli, so it was the Patriots scouting philosophy. So I did that for 4 years. So I knew there was a transition there, and it's really just, the grading scale is different, but it's a process. So the best way that we did it in 2013 when John Dorsey came there was we're going to have these college meetings.
Yeah.
And that's the first time we're going to set the board. And that's a great way for these guys to learn the process and the new grading scale. So we plan to implement it during those meetings.
So you're trying to establish your own identity, and doing so, redefining what a Titans player may or not be. So final question, going forward, what does it take to be a Tennessee Titan? What does a player have to be a Tennessee Titan in your mind?
Yeah, like I said in the press conference, big, physical, tough, smart, tough, dependable team player. That's what we're looking for.
So do we all have funny accents to you, like everybody down here?
A little bit, but
Yeah.
mine's probably more extreme than yours.
It's a little extreme. I mean, can I say this? Can I go, my favorite movie is The Departed.
Departed,
Is
yeah.
that pretty good,
Yeah,
Boston accent?
Departed.
That's the only thing I
Well,
can say
it's
in
always
Boston.
Bostonian. Park the car in the Harvard yard. That's
Yeah,
what you
park
want.
the car in the Harvard yard.
There you
Is that I think that's pretty good. I think I did pretty good. I appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
General Manager Mike Borgonzi here at the Senior Bowl. Thanks.
Thank you.